this was our thinking ahead, that there are other things along Atlantic Avenue, along 17th Street, stormwater, other things that the city and the public could benefit from using the state revenues from this project. It is a totally separate idea and a totally separate effort. And there's no bond issuing. It's, if this bill gets passed, these revenues that this project could create, as one example only, could benefit the city, not this project directly.
Mike, I was just up there in Richmond, and that's related to the entertainment district the city wants to create. So the bill's related to refunding money towards the entertainment district.
Yeah,
So
this was our idea saying,
Yeah.
why not ask?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to benefit this project. It can benefit all
It'll benefit the-
stormwater
it'll benefit the-
if that's
it'll
what they
benefit the
decide.
whole- the whole
But why not ask? We are one of the state's largest tourism attractions in the state. We could use a little help. Why do they need to solely benefit from the revenues for the next 20 years at the state level? Why can't we ask for those to be used locally? That's all. There's no bond issue, and there's no direct today benefit to this project. We are only the generator, the catalyst to collect those revenues and turn them back over to the city.
Okay, did that answer all?
I read that HB this morning, and it said issue it.
It does reference the issue.
It does reference bonds in there. And I guess my frustration is, we don't do it for stormwater. We don't ask the legislature for money for stormwater. We don't help the people whose homes flood in Pungo, but we can do it for an entertainment venue. It seems like our priorities are
Yeah.
reversed.
Ms. Marsh, we are asking the state for funding for stormwater.
Great.
Now,
We have that.
there's a whole movement on that. So that is something that's going to happen. We're asking the state and the feds for that.
Please, move on. Yes, sir, Reed.
Hi, I'm Reed Grimmy. I thought we were going to write our questions down on cards, submit them to Dane, and have them go through them. I had a variety of questions, many, but we're only going one at a time. So I have 3 easily answered questions that are not long. The first one is, when is the first stabilized year? Who decides when that is and by what criteria? That's number 1. Number 2, of the 2005 new parking spaces, how many are reserved for residents of the project, businesses and their employees, and guests, hotel guests? And ancillary to that, which was on here, how many spaces currently existed in this land area that are being replaced? I'm trying to find out what A, the net gain is, and B, what the availability is on parking. And lastly, you showed an RFQ, and I read the criteria when you put it up there, and immediately I was very suspicious of that. So I would like to know who drafted the criteria for the RFQ, what input from the RAC was provided or the development community, where did that criteria come from? I want to understand, as someone who writes government contracts and does this, nobody ever asked anybody in Virginia Beach, do we want multi-block mixed-use development at our oceanfront? I don't see that coming from the citizens. So where did that criteria come from? And I want maybe later you can come back with an actual factual answer. There were these meetings at the RAC, and they drafted this, and these business interests wrote that, and that information ended up in the contract.
That's getting ridiculous.
Okay,
That's
all
a lot
right.
of questions to
So,
address.
so the 3 questions were, when is the first stabilized year?
Can we do them one at a time?
Yeah. When is the first stabilized year? Who determines what that is and by what criteria?
Okay, so we have made a forecast today that we are using to base the deal on. And the forecast anticipates approximately 3 years of time that precedes the first stabilized year. So this is a large, complex project where different components are going to open up at different times, but we're assuming that there is 3 years of pre-development, and then on the 4th year, you have a first stabilized year. The specific criteria for that have not been articulated in any meaningful way, but they will be in a development agreement which deals with the project more specifically. That we're on a term sheet that deals with these types of issues in a broader sense.
Okay, so the answer is, it hasn't been defined, all right.
All right, Reed, keep it to 3, so we can
I
other
did,
people
I did.
are running out
I'm
of
going
time.
back, all
I've
right.
got a whole stack.
Well, Dean, I narrowed that down from the 15 that I have.
I can stick around after the cameras go off.
On the RFQ, where did that criteria come from, and who contributed to it?
Great question. Unfortunately, I don't know. Donna, do you know?
I would just say staff.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Oh,
So, no, I'll answer some of that. Some of that did come from the RAC, came from a lot of the businesses. And I wasn't there, I'm only in office 12 days now. Hey. But a lot of that came out of the oceanfront RAC and some other RESAP.
Yeah, so you write your own criteria for an RFQ, then magically you submit to it. You know, that, in the government,
No,
that's...
no, the RFQ went out and
Oh, well, if the assumption is
These
that
guys did
we
write it.
preempted.
Yeah.
No, let me tell you a quick story about January 2017 that might address this specific issue. When we first saw the RFQ, we contacted folks who I'm not going to identify and said, hey, we'd like to do this. And the response was, we've got some folks who we think are going to do this. And at that point in time, a chip went on my shoulder and I said, no, we're actually going to gun for this project and try to take it down and do the best possible project that we can do to shake up the establishment and try to get someone else involved in oceanfront development. And so if the idea is that, we like the surf park idea, let's write some criteria that kind of matches it and we're going to put it out to the public. Dude, no sir.
Okay,
Not
that's
at
good,
all.
all right, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And then, on the parking,
Yeah.
the issue was, I added your numbers up, there's gonna be 2,005 new parking
Yes,
spaces
sir.
on the street and in the building. Of that 2,005, how many are reserved for residents who live within the project, the employees and businesses who are a part of the project, and the guests of the hotel?
So the short answer is that it's all in parking study, but all of the parking is going to be paid for parking. So if you are a resident of that multifamily, you're going to have to pay to utilize the space on some fixed basis.
Okay,
It's
so
not
that
going to be the same
That doesn't
cost.
answer my question.
It
If I
doesn't
put,
answer
if
the
I
question.
put, if I put 500 residents living there, and they consume 500 of the 2,005 parking spaces, then I don't have a net of that for people to use. And if the businesses do that, so this current land is public parking, and it's city-owned property.
Yes, sir.
And we have a shortage of parking at the oceanfront. This is land that could have a multi-use set of parking decks that would provide public land to fill that shortage of parking spaces. And oh, by the way, it wouldn't really suffer from flooding, right?
Sure.
So that land is the potential to solve our parking problem at the oceanfront, which would benefit the entire oceanfront, by the way. But if you build this project and you're putting residents in there and adding retail businesses and you're putting in hotels, do they just consume all the parking?
They don't consume all the parking. In fact, the parking study that is online will show you the allocation of parks among the retail, the office, et cetera. That the residents, yes, will be, have the option to get one space per unit or perhaps more if they want to pay for it. But the net parking that would be available for users is going to be net of the retail and the office. And unfortunately, I just don't know those numbers off the top of my head. Donna, you may, I don't know if you recall. But you can actually go online onto the parking study, the Desmond analysis, VB.gov, search for Dome, look for Desmond, you'll see each category and the spaces associated with it. It is a...
So as a final point, listen, you can help have a little graph.
Yeah, that's it, Reed, we gotta move,
Okay.
that's,
Yeah, we didn't realize we were getting into like
yeah.
numbers.
And that really will be teased out in the development agreement.
Well, I mean,
We could have brought this
Let's
up.
go. Whoever's gonna, we got time for a few more. Brevity is the soul of wit. So let's get them chops.
Okay, I have a series of questions. Would you find this project profitable enough to go forward without taxpayer money?
This project, no ma'am. This project could not be developed without additional investment. That's the reason why we're seeking the additional investment, and that's the reason why, if we didn't have city investment, we could develop a low-rise multifamily strip center on that property today. We could do that, but we would not get the transformative quality or the revenue impact from developing a project like this.
Can I touch on some of that?
Sure, yes, sir.
We need to fix roads down there, and we need parking, and every time we fix a road, we address flooding issues. So the $7.5 million is going to go to that. Frankly, it's not enough. The city needs to spend more on that. But at least that's a start. And then the parking we need to address. So those are two areas we need to address.
Okay, this is a hot topic. Does Town Bank have anything to do with? Oh, boy.
That's great. No, ma'am. We are not talking to Town Bank in any meaningful way. I think I have a savings account at Town Bank. I have to disclose that. Actually, it's my wife's. So, I don't know that I have to disclose that. But no, ma'am, we're not talking to Town Bank.
Project real estate taxes equaling $2.2 million a year, but isn't the land being leased from the beach taxpayers for $1 a year, so real estate taxes do not include the land?
There will be real estate taxes on the condo regime that is on the property. So yes, it will generate real estate taxes, even though the dirt, which is still owned by the city or the authority, would not technically have any real estate tax associated with it. The improvements do.
But if you bought the land, you would have to pay, like everybody else, for the value of the land at the oceanfront, which is prime real estate.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
But you don't pay that now because you're leasing it for $1 a year.
Yes, sir. That's
Okay.
right. And I would submit that the real estate tax revenues,
I want to put a bid.
the real estate tax revenues generated by the overall project is greater than the real estate tax revenues that would have been for just the dirt.
The $5 million for 20 years bonus performance, why and who's paying for that?
That is the investment analysis that I described up here, which said we're going to get revenues from two sources, TDFP and the performance grant. The TDFP is comprised of $1 million from the city, $1 million from the state, and $1 million from the developer, and then up to $2 million for the performance grant from tip-related revenues. That's the $5 million, and that is what is necessary for that transformative project that we're describing today. It's what gets us to a financeable deal.
How much does upkeep and maintenance cost the city, us taxpayers?
That's an interesting question. We have proposed an SSD, which would actually impose the burden for the additional cost of maintenance on the project itself. So much like Town Center, which has a special services district, they pay into a fund which then upgrades the maintenance. So the answer is that the project itself pays for the additional cost of the revenue, of the operation.
While the lost city revenue from leaving the dump site barren for 25 years is huge, it is a sunk cost. Do the new revenues offset all the public investment, and if so, for how long?
Do the new revenues
Offset that
offset
loan?
the public investment?
The loss of the past revenues?
Yeah, I can't really quantify what the opportunity cost has been. You know, I don't know what, if we would have invested this back in 1994, we would probably have done an extraordinarily good job of stashing away revenue. But I have no way of really quantifying what that is relative to what we produced.
How often are the actual financial statements of the PPP business made public, and who is, I don't know what this word is, auditing the funds to monitor performances?
Well, we know that the city and the I can't remember what Patty's official title was, finance director, is reviewing the financial statements for the project. And in fact, we've already delivered 30 pages of our financial projections. And when I shared that with other folks who have been involved in public-private partnerships, they laugh and say, holy cow, you gave them all that? Yes, we have fully disclosed all of our financial pro formas and models to the city, to Patty, who's now retired, and we are going to continue to do that with the city on an ongoing basis.
This one is, this not like Top Golf and golf courses. Top Golf has actually increased golfing all over the city, a win-win. So would you make that comparison?
Well, for the sport of surfing, you mean, as an analogy? Yeah, I think this project is going to inspire a lot of folks to take an interest in something that they ordinarily would not have done. Surfing is obviously very important to the city of Virginia Beach. It's an important cultural activity here, and I think a lot, this project really speaks to the importance of surfing to the city of Virginia Beach, and will encourage others to take up the sport.
I know we had some other questions, but we have a limited time, so if you're willing to stay for a few minutes afterwards, we still have our 50/50, and if there are any announcements from any other organizations. I would like to thank Mike and Donna for coming today. We are a vociferous group, to say the very least, and I think that you find the questions here are not typically the questions you'll find in Civic League. And I'm not saying that to be negative to Civic Leagues, but there